What's up, YouTube? So today's topic, I'm gonna talk about the reasons why a lot of people have restricted thinking when it comes to spirituality, or like why people aren't as open-minded, or why people aren't as creative when it comes to their thinking. So let's get to it. One of the reasons why a lot of people aren't as open-minded, or not into spirituality, or they're not into and keep on, when it comes to spirituality, I'm not referring to spirituality as a religion or as like a certain way of thinking. It's more so spirituality is pretty much open-mindedness and thinking outside the box and using that to better yourself. That's what spirituality is pretty much from an overview. There's different aspects of it, there's different things, but overall, I'm sure you guys get what I'm saying when I say why people lack thought of spirituality. I'm referring to as like creativity and thinking outside the box pretty much. They're questioning a lot of shit and you know what I'm saying? So now, one of the reasons why a lot of people like that is because growing up, first off, it was out of our control and it's not our fault, and it was out of our control that we were subjected into a very restricted, controlled environment called society or called this world. Growing up, we didn't usually we did not want to go to school, being forced to learn a bunch of shit we'd rather not learn. That's why you see a lot of kids, they rather stay home, or like they'll cry to their caretaker caretakers that they want to go to schools, because you know what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with the thing I like about school is that you get to meet different types of people, you get to socialize. But when it comes to you having to wake up at a certain time, being forced to do shit you don't want to do, that's a problem, and that limits your thinking. Because when it comes to these tests and what these schools teach you, is like you have to think a certain way, you have to act a certain way in order for you to pass a certain test or to ace a fucking quiz or an exam. You're taking all these exams, quizzes, tests, and all that. It's just like it force people to think, to not think outside that box. It forces them to think inside the box, pretty much. With because there's so much restrictions, especially it starts at a young age. Because as kids, or like as you're young, is like your mind is growing, your mind is expanding, and naturally, just like what people say, when you have these newborns and these babies, once they're born, they're naturally fresh from the spiritual realm. So naturally, there's why they're so playful, they're so like dreamy, and they like to do a lot of shit because more like, yeah, because they came from the spiritual realm. But as I get older, that shit taints down. I'm not talking about maturity and immaturity. I'm talking about when it comes to creativity and their thinking. Um, as they grow older and be subjected to all this societal bullshit, like having to think a certain way, or like having to pass this, having to pass that, having to fit in with certain people, that limits the mind to where it forces people to not think uniquely, or for them to act themselves, or them to be unique. Because now everything is operated off a fucking program. Like when it comes to people's thinking, when it comes to their mindset, when it comes to their self-esteem, with these commercials out here, with TV pushes out, with all these networks and shows that parents dish out to these kids, it forces them to think a certain way and to act a certain way based on these programming. So check out Chauncey One's YouTube channel. He talks about programs and how everything is a program, and it fucks up the human mind pretty much. So that is at play. But now, as you grow older as an adult, or like even if you're middle school, high school, a lot of people, they're also easily programmed. There are some instances where like people are born into like families to where they have a certain way of thinking, or a certain type of like restrictions when it comes to their belief systems, when it comes to how they do shit, when it comes to like, it could be anything, honestly. It could be like, there's different things I don't want to mention because I don't want, but it's just how their belief systems, when they think about a certain way, or if people deny that thinking, or if they don't agree with it, then they attack them. It could be anything. It could be like narcissism, emotional intelligence. It could be maybe some families, they don't like when other people express themselves, or like other families, they don't like when people show affection. Other families, they have a certain way of thinking when it comes to life and how life should be, and they have other families who are more disciplined and constructed, who are more like left brain thinking and more logical, and like they're very like robotic, and that seems and they don't show as much affection. It could be all this shit. Usually people who are black, and this is where you get your black sheeps of the family, or your family scapegoats, and usually people are meant to break generational curses. They're usually subjected into families who are very narcissistic. They have a one way of thinking, which is toxic and dysfunctional. But someone who actually has a fucking brain, who actually has common sense, unlike other these dumbass retarded people, they actually know right from wrong. They have emotional intelligence, and they can see what they're doing is not right. But these other family members, since they're so fucking stupid, they're under a fucking spell, and like they're also influenced by demonic entities due to the system they're subjected to, based on previous generations, it traumatizes the whole bloodline. So when they see someone that calls it out, they attack them. There's also spiritual warfare at play, but I don't want to get into spirituality or warfare. I don't want to bring this into this video, but then they get shunned, they get attacked, and now that one person feels outcasted, they feel rejected, abandoned. Their caretakers were supposed to take care of them, but since they're so fucking stubborn in their one way of thinking, they think that when someone questions it or they disagree with it, they think they're the enemy. Then they attack them. This is why I call them retarded and stupid. This shit happens worldwide. This is where you get your generational curses and shit like that. So not only are you dealing with societal program, you're dealing with the outer world program, these school systems, and then and now your family. So that forces someone to be traumatized, for them to lose their self-worth, their self-esteem. It fucks up their nervous system. And as they get older, they attract a bunch of bullshit into life, or they attract a lot of narcissistic people who remind them of their caretakers. Now God got to orchestrate a spiritual connections or a twin flame connection or a soulmate connection. And now God wants these people to connect off of trauma, and then this is where you get your trauma bonds and all these parasitic relationships and shit like that. It causes more trauma. Some people like get very damaged over this shit severely. They feel like permanent physical pain off of this shit. Either that, or if God wants to orchestrate a connection to where you're meant to heal but not to hurt each other, then this is where you get your twin flame connection, your fucking soulmate connections, where you two feel that connection, you two feel drawn to each other, but then there's so much trauma, so now you two are mirrors of each other, then you two purge out all the trauma from one another. It's a very grueling process, more pain and bullshit, pretty much. That's pretty much the human life, pretty much, because we all go through cycles and repeated karmic patterns and all this stupid ass shit that we rather not deal with, but we're forced to deal with because of the regulations and rules of this fucking realm, pretty much. But you see what I'm getting at. That's why a lot of people they lack proper thinking. They lack proper thinking because, again, like I said before, the school system, the societal programming, and how people act, because they're also influenced, but also by family members, their impact, pretty much. So I think that's what's also important, to expand your horizons, put yourself out there, meet different types of people, travel around the world, explore to see the types of programs people have, how they think, their perspectives. It doesn't have to be them having a bad program, but it can be like a situation or how they think or how they operate could change your perspective about life, and that's how you expand and grow as a person, because you're constantly learning. The human mind and brain always expanding and learning. So but that's what I'm getting at. More so, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people lack creative thinking, and they lack thinking outside the box. They don't question shit because of the societal programming and all this other shit. So this is how it is. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Pretty much. It's not our fault, because we're subjected into this shit. It's God's fault. God is allowing this shit to happen. It's not our fault. You know what I'm saying? It's either God's fault or the universe's fault or the rules and regulations of this realm. So it's not really our fault. It's just how the society is. We're subjected into that shit. Yes, we could protest. We could talk about it, like a lot of people are doing on YouTube or on other social media platforms. But is there going to be real changes? Not really, unless we're actually doing something. But realistically, who's going to actually do that shit? We ain't got time for all that shit. Maybe we do. Maybe one day. But I mean, you got fucking time speed, and you got the days going by a lot faster. And hopefully that's going to collapse society and restructure everything where it works in all of our favor. So there'll be less wars and battles and real corruption and bullshit and pain and suffering and narcissism due to this evil ass corrupt world. Who knows? But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of programming, there's a lot of restrictions, and shit like that. So it's hard to kind of break free from those patterns. So this is why a lot of people they're heavily influenced. This is where you get your man, what's the word? Your trends from, social media trends. A lot of people like to wear the baggy clothes. And that's a worse example. But you see what I'm getting at? You see all these social media programs. I made examples, and yeah, actually, I'm gonna take that back. Nah, never mind, because it's kind of useless. But you see how all these trends on social media, right? And now you see all these people doing the same thing. That's how much influence, or that's how not fragile. I can't find the right word, but that's how the human mind works, pretty much. Or at least in this society, in this collective, where if they see something popular happening or something mainstream, then they're naturally gonna follow it because they see a lot of other people doing that. Because realistically, life is pretty much boring because we're so restricted. So People is trying to find different outlets or different ways to where they could, I guess, escape reality, but more so like have something to look forward to, pretty much, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Not saying I'm fully 100% right. I could be wrong, but that's how I think, pretty much. So like, um, and we all do it. There's no right or wrong. This is how life is. This is how we operate, pretty much. There's no right or wrong. There's nothing wrong about that. So yeah. So because we all live off of fear-based energy. When you live off of fear-based energy, it's gonna force you to not think outside the box. You think the worst-case scenario, and think there's nothing good out here. You know what I'm saying? Off of fear. Look at the money system. A lot of people, they can't find romantic interest. They can't attract a partner because of finance, or they can't maintain one because we live in a society to where you need to be a slave and work and to have money in order for you to maintain your resources and shit like that. It's very fucked up. Um, so yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why there's a lot of gender wars going on too, because of the society, which makes sense because society is causing a lot of people to be fed up, traumatized, and not live life they're surviving because everything revolves around money. The male needs money and the female needs money in order for them to maintain and keep up with the resources and for them to expand their horizons. Realistically, all these resources should belong to us. I'm talking about food, water, shelter, a place to fucking stay, and for us to have free access to vehicles, and where we could travel around the world and do our own thing and reconstruct society to where people don't have to work for the money system. Still allow safety and other laws out here. I'm sure there's advanced technology that the government likes to hide from us. I'm sure there's, but we're in the year 2024. There's other beings, life forms. I'm sure there's other ways for us to reconstruct society to where it doesn't have to be the way it is right now, to where it traumatizes a lot of people. But there's also, I'm sure there's other ways where you can also reconstruct society to the point where like everyone's not going to be as reckless, like the movie The Purge, because you got crazy ass people and shit like that because there's no law enforcement. I'm sure there's other ways to reconstruct that shit. You know, so is it gonna happen? I doubt it. If I manage to live up to 100, when is this shit happen? I wouldn't be surprised. I doubt it. But who knows? I mean, the reason I'm a hopes up because you got fucking time speed up. You got the days going by a lot faster. So as years go by, time's gonna accelerate, and then eventually, I'm sure that's gonna do something with the society. Hopefully, it works in our favor. I doubt it, but we'll see. So, but yeah, but that's one of the reasons why a lot of people lack creative thinking and shit like that because of the society we live in. There's a lot of programs. There's also a lot of expectations to where you got to take so much tests and exams and study for this and that. Or you got to act certain ways. And there's nothing wrong or wrong. But what I'm saying is that if you're at a constant state of having to like read something off of external factors instead of thinking internally, then that's going to cause you to like lack creative thinking and to think outside the box pretty much. But also blame this realm and this world because in this realm and in this world is naturally restricting because we can't breathe underwater. We can't fucking like we can't explore in space and shit like that. So there's a lot of restrictions when it comes to the human body. The human body feels sore extremely easily when you work out intensely. The human body naturally has a lot of trauma. The human brain and the nervous system is extremely fragile and weak. This is why a lot of people go through trauma. It's easy for people to develop a lot of like patterns when it comes to addictions, codependency, and external factors and shit like that. A lot of people are like emotionally unstable because of how fragile the human body is. That's a fucking problem too. So there's always got to constantly, because people always talk about healing this, healing that, healing this. Why the fuck do we always gotta fucking heal? Is it part of the human experience to fucking heal all the time? To experience blissful shit, then to experience bullshit pain, then you gotta heal it, overcome it, you gotta recover from it, and that's an ongoing process. Healing's a lifelong journey. So the fact that we always gotta constantly experience trauma and bullshit, heal from it, overcome it, this is where you get your karmic cycles and karmic patterns and all these other life cycles and bullshit that humans gotta experience. All this stupid ass shit is so the human experience in itself, the human body is at play. This is why I blame God and the universe and this fucking realm because they're also at play. You know what I'm saying? It's stupid. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be perfect. There are good parts and bad parts, but everything is a fucking duality. But there's more bullshit compared to good parts, in my own opinion. On top of that, you got evil ass people who rule over this world, so it's gonna make more of the human experience and more of a fucking hassle. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of people lack creative thinking and shit like that. But that's all I gotta say and have a good one. Peace.